Okay, hello everyone. Thank you so much for attending this online talk that we are arranging today. It's really happy and delightful to really see all of y'all over here. Not to just talk about Indian culture, but to really learn about the other culture, the Chinese culture, and especially at what more an appropriate time where Chinese New Year is just around the corner, and you see all the festive goodies being sold everywhere. I think it's very important for us to really understand and see what we know about it, really just to even test our knowledge to see, hey, all these years I know about something, is that even correct? So that is all about today, the talk on Chinese New Year. And I'm Vilakia Selvaraji, representing the CSTC. I'm with them as a member. And we have a very special guest today. We have Shaun Choh with us. He is an assistant curator at the Singapore Chinese Cultural Center. He's been there for 3 years, and he has curated various exhibitions, that really aim to reflect and bring across deeper understanding of the Chinese culture. I guess one of his works will definitely be the Discovering Chinese Singaporean Culture. It's a permanent exhibition at the Singapore Chinese Cultural Center. So it includes like Singapore popular culture, Chinese religions, Chinese history. But specifically, today's talk is going to be all about Chinese New Year. What is Yusheng? We all know what's Yusheng. I think we all definitely would have done at least once a lo hei, where we just scream, hey, what bringing prosperity and fortune. So it is definitely interesting, I guess, to really hear from Shaun himself about what we think, is it correct, what needs to be changed, or even maybe some interesting insights. I heard that pineapple tarts and love that lettuce, there's some interesting background. So Shaun, maybe you can take the stage and bring us through some interesting information. And
Yep.
during this whole period, if you all have any questions, feel free to type them in the chat so that later when we have the Q&A, we can moderate and ask Shaun, who will be willingly taking all the questions, however many it's going to be. He's ready to answer, right, Shaun?
Yes, of course.
Okay, over to you.
Uh, Thanks for introducing me, and thanks everyone for spending your afternoon with me. Thanks to the Tamil Center for inviting me for this talk as well. Okay, so what I'm going to share today is basically what makes a Chinese New Year Singaporean. So let me share the slides. Okay. Um, right. So Chinese New Year is for a Chinese society, whether it's Taiwan, Hong Kong, China, or even in Vancouver. So Chinese around the world celebrate Chinese New Year in a slightly different manner. This is largely due to cultural interactions and also localization. So what really makes Singapore's Chinese New Year so special, so Singaporean, okay, that a lot of Singaporeans don't even know it's unique. So I'm going to share that today. But before that, so I spent my entire morning and yesterday doing spring cleaning. So this is one very important custom of Chinese New Year, basically to remove the old and to look forward to the new. Um, but the real start of the New Year, okay, according to legend, is that in ancient China, there was this ferocious-looking creature. It's called Nian, so which is the Chinese word for year, Y-E-A-R, year. Okay, so Nian is a creature that comes out during New Year every year to eat people, to destroy houses. So what the Chinese did in those days was to actually come up with lion dances, because it's said that the Nian is afraid of lions, okay, and noise. So that's why lion dance, if you notice, they have a lot of different kind of scary looking faces, even though they're smiling, okay, and also it's very noisy, a lot of sound, which is to scare away the ferocious creature. And then it is said that he is afraid of red color. So that is why red became a popular color. But of course, today when we look back, we more or less would know that this is what people came up with. In reality, this is not the case. And also the point about making noises to scare away the old or scare away the evil, this is shared across many different cultures. So if you read the news recently, you notice that even Myanmar is doing the same thing. They say that it's expelling the evil. It's exactly shared across different cultures. Okay, so now we know about the mythical, legendary start of the New Year. Okay, then we'll go into how we actually celebrate New Year. Of course, in Singapore, the New Year holiday is just 2 days. the first day and the second day of Chinese New Year, which follows the lunar calendar. And but if you go to Taiwan, it's a 7-day holiday. And in China, maybe a few years now, they shortened the holidays. If I remember correctly, 7 to 8 days, but previously was entire 15 days. So because China is a very huge country, people work far away from hometowns. Traveling back to the hometown villages would take a long time. So going back there to spend 2 to 3 days would not make so much sense to them. So a longer holiday period would make more sense for them to travel, to meet their parents, relatives. Okay, so the New Year, even though we say 15 days, but the actual start is on the eve, which is when we have the Tuan Yuan Fan, okay, the reunion dinner, the most important meal of the year to the Chinese. Okay, in Singapore, maybe not so much. We see our parents most of the time, and of course, in modern society, most of us might not even want to see our parents. Okay, but not me. I love my parents. Okay, but a lot of people might not want to see their parents. But reunion dinner is a time when you must meet up. Okay, if you have some Chinese friends, you will notice that yesterday and today it's a popular period for reunion dinner. Why? Because some people, they have two sides of family, paternal side, maternal side. So usually by hierarchy, traditionally, the paternal side would be having it on the actual New Year's Eve, but the maternal side would be having it the week before. And of course, this year, due to the COVID measures of only 8 people meeting up, so I believe there will be even more different reunion dinners around the city. Okay, and another thing to do on New Year's Eve is actually shou sui, staying up, which I'll go to later. Then the first day is where we have to go to visit relatives' house, and all the way until the 15th day, which is the Spring Lantern Festival. There are 2 Lantern festivals in Chinese culture. The first one is the Yuan Xiao, 15th of the first lunar month, and the other one is Mid-Autumn Festival. Okay. Then reunion dinner is most important. Okay. Why that is the key to why is reunion dinner more important than any other dinner? I mentioned earlier on that it is a time where people come together. But if you notice, if you know about Mid-Autumn Festival, the 15th day of the 8th month, it is when people say that everyone come together again. So you notice every Chinese festival is about everyone coming together. So this is the interesting thing. But sometimes if in Mid-Autumn, you might not be able to make it back to town, but for reunion dinner, it is a must. So that is why it's most important. And after reunion dinner, one very important thing to do, okay, if you're a filial son or daughter, you must stay up. Okay, it is said that if you stay up past 12 a.m., okay, which means from the eve until the next day, then your parents would have a long life, lead a long life. Okay, as to why this is so, to be honest, I've looked through a lot of materials. We have not seen anything that explains why this is so. Okay, I believe this is just something to show that the kid is willing to go to an extra mile to do something for our parents. But I think more or less nowadays people will be able to do this because you don't sleep that early anymore. Unlike in the past when people really sleep after dinner, maybe 7 or 8 o'clock, but now 1 to 2 p.m. is a norm. Okay, so on the first day of New Year, this is something that is unique to Chinese societies outside China. Okay, 抢头香, which is to compete to plant the first joss stick. In Singapore, the most popular temple to do this is actually Guanyin Put Tu Temple, the one along Waterloo Street. Okay, every year there'll be a huge queue, people with joss sticks in hand queuing up, hoping to be the first one to plant the joss stick into the urn or the incense pot. Okay, it is said that the first joss stick to enter the incense pot or the censer would have a lot of blessings for that year. Okay, but I've watched the video many years. Okay, you'll not be able to tell who is the first one, because as you can see on the photo on the right side, there are so many people rushing in and pushing everyone aside. You can never ever tell who got it in, and it is so fast that everyone tries to throw in their joss stick. The star here, if we see bottom right side, this staff removes the joystick basically the moment you put it inside. That is how fast this thing is happening. And of course, this year due to COVID, this is not happening. So everyone can plant their first joystick at home. Okay, you're guaranteed to get the first one. Yes. Okay. The next thing about first, one more thing to share about 讲头香, because today we cut off the New Year very clearly. It's 12 a.m. because we follow the GMT system. But Chinese day is calculated by 12 hours instead of 24. So the next day actually starts at 11 p.m. instead of 12 a.m. And so really, who really plants the first joystick? According to traditionally, it should be 11 a.m. instead of 12. Yes. Okay, so the first day of Chinese New Year, very important. You go around to do New Year visits. Okay, so New Year visits is actually something that more than not only limited to Chinese, if you notice. Basically, people visit Chinese friends' houses, Chinese visit different races' houses during the Chinese New Year, to do New Year visits. But traditionally, the first day, when you wake up, you exchange Mandarin oranges with your parents. So you always wish your parents Happy New Year first, and they of course give you a red packet as a form of blessing. Okay. After that, traditionally, hierarchy-wise, you would go to your grandparents' house. Okay, so most relatives would gather all together at the grandparents' house. So if you have 3 generations or 4 generations of relatives, all will gather there. Of course, in today's society, that's not possibly the case. Like most people will only have 2 generations. The most you get 3 generations, and this year that's not going to happen as well. So I think most people will be happy not to see some relatives. Yeah, but a few typical things that we do during New Year greetings, okay, is exchanging Mandarin oranges. So you will see traditionally people hold 2 oranges giving to the other party, and then to say some prosperous phrases, wishing them good luck, Happy New Year, and of course everyone knows 恭喜发财. So you see, people always say that the Chinese love money, so 恭喜发财, which to hope that you have a lot of money, prosperity, this kind of thing. Okay. But I would like to share something about exchanging Mandarin oranges. It is a custom that is prominent in Singapore and Malaysia. Okay, it is something that I did not notice when I was young as well. Only in recent years that I noticed, because when you have more friends from Taiwan, China, or Hong Kong, you realize that they don't exchange Mandarin oranges in a pair during Chinese New Year. So they might give oranges in a whole box, whole carton before New Year as a form of gift. Okay, but in Singapore, we always give it on the Chinese New Year day as a form of pioneer. And why is this so? There are 2 possible origins to this. One is that it is a southern Chinese custom. So some say that it's actually from Teochew because they give oranges during Chinese New Year. Okay, but if you go to China, Teochew today, they don't exactly do it the Singapore way. And another saying is that it's from a Cantonese word, because oranges in Cantonese is called gum. Okay, when you pronounce it as gum, it's gold. It's the same pronunciation as gold. So when I give you gum, it means I'm giving you gold, wishing you prosperity as well. So there are 2 different saying of how this actually started, but there is no doubt that you only see this largely in Singapore and Malaysia, not in other societies. So this is what our overseas Chinese society has developed, a distinctive Chinese New Year custom. Okay. Oops, sorry. And then red packets. Yeah, so after you do Bai Nian, you give oranges, your elders will give you red packets. Okay, so interestingly, so on the left side, Chinese red packets, of course, in red. So over time, Muslim cultures adopted giving blessings as well. So they put it in a green packet. And then I think in recent years, I've heard quite a lot from my Hindu friends that during Deepavali, purple packets are given out as well as a form of blessing. So this culture has evolved into different cultures in Singapore, which is actually unseen in other areas. Okay, so after the first day, you can basically visit your family and friends for the entire 15th day. But on the 7th day, okay, there's something that's very important, okay, which is everyone's birthday. We call it 人日. What happens on this day is that it is said this deity, 女娲, she was the one who made humans. So this is everyone's birthday. And then on this everyone's birthday, Singapore and Malaysia has this custom of lo hei. So this one on the right side. Lo hei is what is the action of tossing it up. The dish itself is called Yusheng, which means a raw fish. And you might not notice, but Yusheng is actually invented in Singapore. This dish is invented in Singapore and done in eaten largely in Singapore and Malaysia. But in recent years, this custom actually went into Hong Kong. So if you go to Hong Kong restaurants, they do Yusheng now. Taiwan a bit, China starting to do so as well. Okay, so this is how we notice that culture from China came to Singapore as an evolution, and then it returned to China. Okay, so this dish, like I mentioned, Yusheng is the dish name. Lo hei is the action. So lo is to toss it up, hei is to rise. It's a Cantonese language. So tossing it up, bringing you good luck. But Yusheng, the raw fish itself. So if you eat Japanese food, it's called sashimi, right? It is a Cantonese food, eaten by the fishermen along the coastal Guangdong route, but they eat it in a very simple manner. They put it with peanut oil, duck sauce, and some condiments. But in the 1960s, so 4 local Cantonese chefs, okay, one of them is still alive. Recently, National Heritage Board actually did an interview with him on the invention of this dish. Okay, and this 4 local chefs, they invented this yusheng. But of course, we do not exactly know why they invented this. But we tried to have an informed guess, which is during Chinese New Year, you want something that is celebratory, something that is fun. And then a lot of businessmen, they like to start the new year with a meal in Cantonese restaurants. Because if you notice Chinese restaurants, most of those that you can sit in a table of 10 are run by the Cantonese. Because traditionally, they are the ones who eat in this manner. Those food that you find a lot in hawker centers like bak chor mee, carrot cake, these are largely Hokkien food. Yeah. So small dishes, Hokkien food, those more elaborate eating in a whole restaurant setting, that's a lot more Cantonese style. Yeah. So that's why there has this chance of Cantonese chefs making a dish. So having this dish colorful, fun, is a good way to draw customers in. So this is a guess that we have, although we're not very sure whether this is the case, but that's how Yusheng came about. And it is named Qi Cai Yusheng by these 4 chefs. Qi Cai meaning 7 colors, so it can be mean colorful as well. And then they started the custom of tossing the food around. So lo hei, there are 3 main steps. Okay, so say an auspicious phrase when you add in ingredient. Okay, and then use a chopstick to toss the salad as high as you can. The higher you toss, the better your luck. So it is very often that after tossing yusheng, you notice the entire table is full of food. Yeah. Which I think is quite a waste, but nobody dares to pick up the food left outside the plate because it seems in Chinese culture, it seems like you're very greedy, so no one dares to do that. Okay, so as I think most of you would know that this year you can't do lo hei anymore. You can only do the action, but you can shout out the phrases due to COVID. Yeah. Okay, so let's go through the 6 main ingredients you find inside yusheng. Okay. Most of the time when people add in the ingredients, it is the waiters or waitresses who help you say all these phrases. Okay. After this process is being done, means basically the ingredients are being plated, then you yourself will start tossing the ingredient and to say whatever you want, basically. All right. So the first most important ingredient is a raw fish. Okay, fish in Chinese, 鱼. So the phrase to say is 年年有余, means abundance in every year. The next one is pomelo, which gives it a bit of soury taste. The pomelo is, it looks like orange, so a bit ji, the word is ji. The phrase to say is 大吉大利, which means good luck and great prosperity. And the next one, carrot. So carrot, there are two types of carrot inside, the red color one and the, sorry, the orange one and the green one. So because carrot, it looks a bit, in Chinese we call it red, 红色, so it's 鸿运当头, so good luck shines on you. And the green radish, because it's green, is 青色, so we call it 青春常驻, so eternal youth, hoping that you are always young, looking full. And this golden cracker here is the most popular and most well liked by all the young children. If you notice that a lot of youngsters, they don't eat the vegetables. They only toss the low hair, and then after that they eat either the fish or the golden crackers. Yeah. And then golden crackers in Chinese is 黄金, so it's 满地黄金. It can be 黄金满地 as well. Okay, so the floor is covered with gold. And then this one, the last one, which is a plum sauce, which gives it a sweet and sour taste. So it's 甜甜蜜蜜, sweet and loving relationships. 6 main ingredients. So this year we can't do lo hei. I mean, we can't shout it out. So people have invented apps to actually do it for you. Okay, I'll show a short clip of this.
So you get any now comes in many dialects. Well done, Mr.
Yep. So just now you see that video. Interestingly, because you can shout the phrases this year. So there's an app to help you do it, and you can, if you notice, it's in different dialects as well. Okay. On the 9th day, what people do is 拜天公, which is praying to the heavenly God. This is a custom that is a Hokkien custom, Hokkien Taoist custom. If you notice on the right side, you see this is the house of the whole heavenly God and the different offerings. But I draw your attention to the bamboos behind. Okay, bamboos on the left and right side. Okay, it is said that during Ming Dynasty, which is I think 1500, the Hokkien people were in the forests, the bamboo forest, and then they bumped into bandits. They were about to kill them, and then they were very afraid. So they stayed in the bamboo forest, hidden behind different bamboos, and they prayed to the heavenly God. And then the bandits did not see them and left the whole forest. So ever since then, the Hokkien had this custom to actually give thanks to heavenly God on the 9th day. And in Singapore, there's, interestingly, a lot of non-Hokkiens also pray to the heavenly God on this day. So it's like, I see my neighbors doing, so maybe let me do as well. I know it's better to do than not to do, so it brings you good luck anyway. Yes. So this is how different dialect groups adopt a particular culture. Okay, then let's go into food now. So this part now we're talking about food. You might have seen this red color, gluey looking cake. Okay, the sides here is made in, is wrapped in banana leaves. Okay. So this is what we call 年糕, so New Year cake. It is extremely sweet, okay? And some people keep it for a long period of time, like my mom, she actually keeps it for a year. Okay, so I'm not sure it's edible because I don't really eat it, my mom eats it. Yeah, but she's alive, so I guess okay. And so how you eat it is they actually put a lot of sugar and coloring and ginger leaves. They make it into something gluey, and it will, after that, it will harden to become a cake. And why we eat this, because 年糕, the word 高 sounds like up or high, so it means rising higher every year. Okay, and because if you know, in ancient China, New Year is a period of time where spring is coming in. So before that is winter. So winter is very cold. A lot of food cannot be produced. That's why a lot of this cake has been produced in autumn. And sugar is a kind of preservatives to keep it fresh even during New Year. So a lot of New Year food traditionally, like sausages, all these are prepared during autumn time. So there is enough food during spring. Okay, Singapore's niangao is slightly different because of the lack of bamboo leaves. This is wrapped in banana leaves instead, or coconut leaves. But today, generally banana leaves. So a form of localization, if you notice. Then pineapple tarts. Okay, I only realized this in recent years. I thought honestly, I was mind blown when I realized this thing. Okay, so pineapple tarts, if you notice, it's a staple of Chinese New Year in Singapore, Malaysia. Go to anyone's house, they'll offer you pineapple tarts because pineapple in Hokkien means ong lai, which sounds like prosperity arrives. But actually, pineapple tart is from Peranakan households, and Peranakans, they are descendants of Chinese who came to Southeast Asia in the 1300s. Okay, so they adopted the local lifestyle, married local Malay women, and they had a lot of cultural influence from the Dutch, from the British. So much so that when Singapore was colonized by the British, a lot of Peranakan Chinese couldn't speak Mandarin. They might speak a bit of the Hokkien dialect because at a point of time, Mandarin wasn't the official Chinese language at a point of time. So Hokkien was their mother tongue, but they largely speak Baba Malay. Okay, and these Peranakans, they adopted the Western baking techniques. Okay, that is why we have this pineapple jam and then the use of flour. If you think of Chinese cuisines, traditionally, you do not see baked food. Okay, if you think about like Macau's egg tarts, Hong Kong egg tarts, the link will again draw back to colonialism, again Western influence. So Chinese cuisine, there's not so much of baking, and then but pineapple tarts baking technique will learn from the Western, from the West, and then it became a custom that is consumed, custom of Chinese New Year. Of course, how it became so, no one knows, but one possibility is because making this costs a lot of time and money. So it is something that's a worthy investment for Chinese New Year. That's why it became something so popular. And I think we did some research. It says that this was a custom that became full-blown in 1950s, so post-war, when people started to get more affluent, and then there were more baking houses making this. So it's something that you only see in Singapore and Malaysia. Go to Taiwan, China, Hong Kong, again, they don't eat pineapple tarts during New Year. So I always found it very weird why my Taiwan friends give me pineapple tarts all year round. I never realized it until recent years when I was doing research. So when I tell my friends that pineapple tarts is not a traditional Chinese New Year cuisine or snack, everyone was quite surprised. And then there's something else similar to pineapple tarts that we eat during Chinese New Year, but it's actually not a Chinese New Year snack. You can think about it. It's something that is flat and rolled together. It's actually the love letters. Okay, love letters. So again, because it's baking using flour, the technique, so it is Peranakan with most likely Dutch influence. Okay, so next time you can tell our friends during Chinese New Year, this is not Chinese New Year snack. All right, you will never see this in China. Okay, so now we go into the way of celebration. So other than going up to people's houses to do New Year visits, Singapore has three distinctive ways of celebrating Chinese New Year. Okay, the first one, Xingge, Lion Dance, and River Hongbao. Okay, let's look at Lion Dance. Lion Dance is essential of Chinese New Year. Traditionally, people will bring them in any time of the year, any time of Chinese New Year, 15 days for good luck. Sometimes your offices, if your boss is feeling rich, he might do it. Okay, bring it to your company. And it's supposed to bring good luck. At the same time, drive away bad luck. All right. Interestingly, in Singapore's case, Lion Dance is very popular among the youth, actually. Even though a lot of traditional Lion dances, they have now come together, consolidated, but a lot of these Lion dancers are actually youth. So I actually interviewed quite a few of them, and I noticed that youths are, especially those secondary school students, poly students, a lot of them go into lion dance. They find it very interesting. And then there's also an interesting phenomenon whereby a lot of it is multiracial in Singapore. Malay, Indians are joining in lion dances. So the oldest lion dance association in Singapore is Heshan Huiguan along Telok Ayer. And Heshan Huiguan's lion dance troupe youth wing president or vice president is actually an Indian. He's extremely interested in lion dance, who's passing on this culture. Okay. And in Singapore, Malaysia, there is an interesting part of this lion dance. Oh, sorry. So in Singapore, Malaysia, lion dance, when they kneel down or they stay on the ground, they actually try to form words using oranges. They might form 4 words for a form of greeting, maybe 恭喜发财. It can also form 4 numbers, and this is usually the case because 4 numbers is easier to form than 4 characters for sure in Chinese, right? And also the Chinese love it because it gives you 4 numbers to buy 40, the 4 digits. Okay, it's extremely popular, and only see it in Singapore and Malaysia. And lion dance in Singapore, you always see the one on the right side, the one that's moving. This is what we call the southern lion. But in fact, in Chinese culture, there are 2 types of lion. There is a northern lion, the one on the left side. So a lot of Chinese in Singapore, those that came in the 19th and 18th century, are from the south of China, coastal regions, because they are poorer and it's easier for them to take the ships and jump to Singapore. So what we have in Singapore is large cultural influence from the south. The northern influence, if you notice, only came in these few years when new citizens joined Singapore. So these few years, the traditionally Chinese came from the south of China, but these few years, new citizens largely come from the north. But in Singapore's lion dance case, it's only the one in south. We do not see any southern lion in Singapore. You see that the difference between the 2 is the face. The one on the left, the mouth does not move. And the features are more deep. The colors are usually red, yellow, orange, or gold. But the one, the southern lion in Singapore, you notice the eyes can move actually, can close. A lot more elaborate, a lot more colors. So that's how the difference, you can see them. And these are 4 digits that I mentioned earlier on. And then one more, River Hongbao in Singapore. This is how we celebrate Chinese New Year. It was mentioned that there was a period of time when a lot of Chinese leave Singapore during Chinese New Year to go overseas. I used to do that as well. Because it's a long holiday, you know, people just want to be away from Singapore. There are 2 reasons people want to do that. One is just needing a break. So because I have a very small family, only 4 of us in Singapore, no relatives. So going overseas to us is the time to get together. But there are some people who are very afraid of New Year gatherings. So when your relatives start asking you, hey, when you get married? Hey, how much you make? Okay. So when getting HDB? So people are afraid of these questions. So what they do is they avoid Singapore during New Year. And what the government did was to come up with this idea of River Hongbao, a long period of celebration with fabricated structures, auspicious characters. Of course, very important one is the 12th Zodiac Sign. Okay, the 12 Zodiac Signs with their all the fortune being told for the entire year. Okay, this is actually very, very important because I noticed that people love reading their own fortune. I was at a shopping mall a few days back with my friends, and even though we are people who are not superstitious, but looking at each other's fortune for the entire year is actually very fun. So we're discussing that, oh, this year I'm going to get a promotion, next year I'm going to have more wealth, luck, things like that. So it's actually a good way of having people interact with each other. So a River Hongbao is one way that's celebrated in Singapore, a distinctive Singapore feature. It also has a food section. So if you note, if you've been to Japan, a lot of those old temples, they have a whole street in front of them. And during certain festivals, they have food laid out, like a carnival session. this is how River Hongbao actually features, like a traditional temple, traditional festival with food and also games. Um, if you want to put it more plainly, it's like a atas pasar malam, a high class pasar malam, something like that. And also one thing that we cannot, in recent years, you might not notice, okay, but Chingay has always been a Chinese New Year festival celebration. Although in recent years, I think there is a conscious effort to reduce the link with New Year, okay? So it is more multiracial in a way. So Chingay actually started as a form of, it is a street parade for sure. And street parades traditionally in Chinese culture, it has to do with religion. So they bring out a deity on like visiting the whole area, okay? And then there will be there'll be people walking behind it, behind the deity, and also different kind of performances, like people on stilt. And then this slowly evolved into something that is less religious. And then in Singapore, this was something that's run by the government since 1973, okay, which is the People's Association. This was made an annual event due to the ban on firecrackers. Okay, so before 1973, firecrackers was allowed in Singapore, but because it caused a lot of nuisance, okay, noise, especially fire incidents, so it was banned. And then to have, but when it was banned, people get very upset that, or they say that it no longer feels like New Year. So Chingay was celebrated with a lot of fanfare. All right, so it was started with only Chinese performances, but in 1976, there's a lot of Malay Indian performances. In recent years, you will notice that it brings in even a Japanese non-Singapore performances. So over the years, it gets more and more elaborate. But this year, again, slightly different. It's now going entirely online. So this is a different way of celebrating Chinese New Year. But if you notice all this while I've mentioned that Singapore's Chinese New Year, why is it so different? You would see because of the cultural interactions between different ethnic groups and different dialect groups. And in Singapore, largely Southern Chinese dialect groups. So I've been researching that how these new citizens from Northern China coming to Singapore would change our way of celebrating New Year. I've not seen something significant yet, but I hope that this would, over the years, something would take place because I think cultural evolution is very interesting and this is something that makes Singapore very, very distinctive. Okay, and then there's a local adaptations. So you notice just now I mentioned Nian Gao, how banana leaves have replaced bamboo leaves. And also the last point, constant evolution. Even though this year we can't do Lo Hei, there's an app to replace it. So the global forces, the situation forces Singapore to actually change and evolve. All right. And then most of this content here that I've shared today actually came from our permanent exhibition. So just now, I think Arun mentioned already that we have a permanent exhibition at the Singapore Chinese Cultural Center, and it shares the daily lives of Singapore and how culture has evolved in Singapore. So a lot of content of New Year has been from there. So if you're interested, do visit. We are open throughout the entire New Year period. Okay, so this brings me to the end of my talk. So if any questions, please raise them. I'll be willing to answer them, more than willing to answer them. Thank you.
Thank you, Shaun. That was really, really interesting. Definitely. It's really a joy because I think it's been many, many years since we heard such elaborate, presentation about really a culture and various aspects to it. There are a few questions over here in the chat box. So the rest of the participants, if you have any questions, feel free to drop your questions over here in the chat box and I will help you all, ask them. Let me ask this question. Nara has asked, around Chinese New Year, there's always a rush to deposit money on a particular day. Any idea how these came about and its significance? And is this also tied to some clearing debt before, Chinese New Year?
Okay, thanks Nara for this question because I noticed that I didn't bring this up. Okay, so this depositing money custom is something that is very recent. From what I know, it actually started by this feng shui master in Hong Kong to say that this particular day called Li Chun. Li Chun means the start of spring, following the solar calendar. 4th of February, usually it's 4th or 3rd of February every year, where different zodiac signs will deposit money during different times of the day. Supposedly, it will bring you good luck, prosperity for the entire year. But I think most people would say that it is a gimmick brought about by this feng shui master. And in recent years, Singapore has adopted this, Singapore, Malaysia, everyone rushed to do it. Okay, so it has nothing to do with clearing the debt, but largely more of a gimmick. And I must say that it's very successful. People really rush to the ATM to do it recent years. Of course, my friend said they have a new idea, which is to just pay now yourself, transfer the money from bank A to bank B. Theoretically, the idea is the same because you still put money into your bank. So I think, yes, it works if you really believe. Why not? And there is this custom of clearing debt before Chinese New Year, to say that to clear the old and to bring in the new. So debt should not bring over to the new year. Yeah, but whether there's any cultural significance, I can't tie any root to it, because if we say that we need to clear old things, to not bring it to the new year, that's one possibility. But of course, I personally think that it is a way people want you to return them the money.
Right. Okay, so with time, convenience kind of like evolves itself, with the different ways. Okay, Arun has a question also. So he has asked, it seems how a word sounds and what color some object has acquires a symbolic meaning. So why is that so, especially with so many dialects, and how did the Chinese as a whole kind of like accept, certain sounds in common?
Okay, this is a good question, because you see colors having symbolic meaning in Chinese culture. I think red as good luck, this is definitely universal actually. If you notice, even in different cultures, red is still considered good luck. But in Chinese, of course, it's something that people take it really seriously. But how is this so? I don't think anyone can answer. We actually tried to find out why red is auspicious when we were trying to do research for the exhibition. Okay, we did not find a conclusive reason. We are very curious with that as well. As to how sound has a symbolic meaning, my guess is that the Chinese is particularly focusing on words and languages. If you notice, Chinese culture is something that takes a lot of focus on words and sounds, and that is why certain people are very particular about sounds. But why different dialect groups adopt sounds from different dialects? I would say this is something that is only happening outside China, because a lot of dialects come together. If you notice, it is not easy for China people in China to interact with maybe Hokkiens, Teochew, Hakka, Hainanese in the same town at the same time. Yeah. But in Singapore, Malaysia, you can do that because of our close proximity, because of our common roots and history, where we are all brought to Singapore. And then when you speak to each other, people say that 8 is a good luck number. So it's like, because in Hokkien 8 means prosperity. For the people, I think yeah. So every culture starts adopted, So it's something like when someone does it that way, let me follow. So it brings good luck as well. So adoption takes place in such a manner.
Right. Interesting. So we have Sundar, who has asked, why give 2 oranges? And also following that, Srijan, she has actually, I think he or she has typed in Chinese. I just did a quick Google translation. So okay. He said something like, hi, I'm Srijan, a secondary 3 student, and I want to ask why red is used other than, maybe other colors during Chinese New Year. What is so special about red during Lunar New Year, and why give 2 oranges? Maybe you just want to vet and see whether what I translate is correct, but yeah, that's the question there.
I must say that the translation is extremely accurate. So my sideline, the translator is doomed, I think, really. So so all this AI is going to take over me.
Yeah.
Okay. So about significance of giving 2. Okay, this is a common question. Yeah. In Chinese culture, 2 is always better than 1. There's this saying that 好事成双 means good things always come in pairs. So if you notice, people when they hang lanterns, it's always in a pair. When they give presents, they try to give it in 2s. So one very important thing, if you notice, when Chinese people give red packets, the amount is always in even numbers. not odd numbers.
Mm.
So even numbers always more prosperous than odd numbers. So this is a very important skill because I never noticed, being a millennial, I never noticed something so significant or people get offended if it's odd number. But
Right.
only I think 1 or 2 years ago, one of my friends' wedding, so she received a red packet that is in odd numbers. I was thinking, so what's the big deal? It's still money and blessing, correct?
Yeah.
She was extremely offended. She said that is this person trying to wish that I have a divorce? So wishing bad things
Oh dear.
on me. So that's how serious some people actually
That's
see it. So
serious.
after that, I said, okay, never mind. So I'll always have my red packet and in the number of 8. Even I personally don't think it's that necessary, but it's better to be safe than sorry.
Yeah. I'm just wondering, are the amounts in the hang paos also kept at double digits? Or
Yes.
like, yeah?
So I would say even numbers.
Even
So
numbers, yeah.
double digit or not is not necessary.
Okay. Any other questions, people? You can just unmute yourself and ask. There's another question from Arul Loswin. Maybe I'll just bring that. He has said, excellent presentation to Shaun, and he's wondering if cultural revolution of China in the 60s and 70s has changed the way Chinese New Year is celebrated there, while in Singapore, which was unaffected, continued some of the age-long traditions foregone in China itself.
Okay, fantastic.
Yeah.
Because I think this is something that when we were developing the exhibition, this is something that we think a lot about. Basically, if you go to Chinese New Year, China today, Chinese New Year in the big cities, it's very quiet. So my friend was sharing me yesterday, she used to work in Shanghai, and that Shanghai is a dead town during Chinese New Year because of the reason where most people in Shanghai today are not Shanghainese. They are people who live in the villages or out of town. So they go back to their towns during Chinese New Year. So Shanghai, like big cities, is a ghost town during Chinese New Year. And then when you go back to your hometown, the religious element of festival is very, very insignificant. Okay, in Chinese culture, I think most cultures-wise, traditionally, religion and customs are closely tied. But for Chinese New Year in China, the religious element is actually very, very weak. So there's one thing that people do in Singapore before New Year is to what we call Song Zao Shen. Zao is actually I would say like a stove in the kitchen. So there's a stove kitchen god, okay? And then he actually stays at the house to monitor your actions throughout the year. So before the end of the year, you are supposed to send him back to heaven. So where he will actually start reporting to the heavenly God what you did for the entire year. So this is a very traditional custom. I think most of my relatives still do it in Singapore. But in China, you won't see this. Okay, because religion is a no-no linked to the Communist Party because it's officially atheist. So a lot of religious customs are being either abolished or suppressed in the past. Of course, in recent years, this is coming back, okay? If I remember correctly, on the 5th day of Chinese New Year is the day where you're supposed to welcome the God of wealth. And then this is the day where a lot of Chinese will come out to welcome the God of wealth. Okay, so they have brought back this traditional custom, even though it was quiet especially after the Cultural Revolution. All religions are not being allowed to be celebrated. So this is something that's coming back. Again, largely linked to prosperity and wealth.
Right, okay. There's a few questions here in the chat group. Next would probably be Aish. Aish has asked, is a red money envelope ritual practiced only within the Chinese family members or can it be done between colleagues? And what do you say when you present one?
Okay. So the red packet is not only within Chinese families. So if within Chinese families, the elders will give to the juniors, especially the elders who are married. So elders who are not married, they can choose not to give. For children with parents, if you're of working age, you can prepare a red packet for parents. Like for myself, I would prepare one for my parents. Colleagues, yes, it depends on how, it's not compulsory between colleagues, but it depends on how nice you want to be.
How close you are also.
I will tell people that it is an opportunity to buy goodwill. Fantastic opportunity to buy goodwill. And for superiors, especially bosses, we have this what we call Kai Gong Hong Bao, which means a red packet to start the year, to start working. So the first day of work in the office, a lot of bosses will actually start giving out red packets to their subordinates as a form of good luck. That's what most people would do. It actually, I would say that it's not compulsory, but being humans, if you don't do it, then I'm sure people will judge you lah. Yeah, sadly, but people really judge you.
Yeah, just sharing an experience. I mean, in my previous workplace, we know that one of my Indian colleagues used to share hang baos to the cleaners aunties in the in the company itself, and every year the Chinese auntie and the uncles, right, will like look forward to receiving hang baos from this Indian colleague, which is very nice to hear. You know, it's been going there for many years, so definitely a good gesture. We have Kasim, who he has asked, so. Yes, what are some days, that are specific? Are there any specific days in terms of like celebrating the Chinese New Year with your friends and families? Are there any boundaries in terms of the days?
Okay, so there is this Cantonese custom. Okay, so most days are okay for visiting, but for Cantonese customs, it says that on the third day of the New Year, don't visit your relatives because it's supposed to be a day where people quarrel. So if you visit people on the third day of New Year, you might quarrel with them. So they avoid visiting on the third day, only for Cantonese culture. But, again, in Singapore, people adopt different dialect groups' culture, customs. So we also avoid doing so on the third day.
Okay, and probably the last two questions, one from Sundar, who said, is there any big don'ts that we need to be, cautious about when we visit our Chinese friends or when we share the season greetings?
I would say if you are looking at most youngsters today, there are not many don'ts. Okay, most people are in Singapore. Most people accept whatever you say. You can say a lot of things, but I think for if you're talking about the elderly, the more seniors, avoid words like death, or breaking things, taking out the broom. Let me share an experience. So I have relatives in Malaysia, so they actually can still use firecrackers. So they do it during Chinese New Year. Then I'm a clean freak, so I try to clean for them. So I started looking for a broom to clean it. And my mom was, oh my God, don't do that. So my auntie was giving me a very angry look. She was saying that I'm gonna sweep away all her good luck. But to me, I was just trying to be helpful, I really think that. I would say that most people are not particular about it anymore, but to avoid doing that. So if you visit people's house, bring them oranges, wish them good luck, 恭喜发财. This is something very, very basic. And then just enjoy the food.
Yep, definitely.
Don't do too much, yes.
And okay, short one. The last question will probably be, we have neighbors all over. We're all living in like HDBs and everyone. Other than oranges, what can we give them?
Pineapple tarts.
Yeah, the local.
Easiest to get, yeah. And because for like bakwan, it's very hard to get during New Year and it's expensive. Not everyone likes it as well. So pineapple tarts is universal.
Right. Okay, great. Thank you so much, Shaun. It was such a clear, very insightful presentation. Mr. Arun will be giving a few words just to help us, summarize and close this talk here. Mr. Arun.
Okay, I'm not going to summarize such a brilliant and detailed talk, but I was struck by a couple of things which I think many of my fellow Singaporeans would agree with. One is the commonalities, that the reunion dinner is not just unique to Chinese. Westerners have Thanksgiving, particularly the Americans. That's, in fact, sometimes considered even more important than Christmas. So the commonality between families getting together, and those of us Tamils who celebrate Pongal and Deepavali, we also value this greatly, coming together. The other point that actually struck me, generally we tend to think culture originates in one place almost in isolation. And then when it travels, the direction is one way, unidirectional. It always travels from China to outside, from India to outside. But today, Shaun, you explained to us that, when we talked about the transition and the evolution, the case of Yusheng, you are saying that it actually originated in Singapore and slowly it traveled to Hong Kong, Taiwan, and even in mainland China. I mean, that's quite amazing. And there are, I think, parallels of this kind in other cultures as well. So I'm always fascinated by the circulation rather than the unidirectional flow of culture and the notion something is pure and it can be preserved, it can be transformed and preserved. Culture has never ever been pure. Culture has always been an evolutionary process. So your exceptionally good talk about the Chinese culture brought home that point to me again. And and the CSTC, the Center for Singapore Tamil Culture, is nothing but intercultural. We are always looking for the differences as well as the commonalities. So in that sense, you made us even more aware how these things happen right around us. So on behalf of this center and all the others who are present here, I want to thank you deeply. It was a wonderful talk. Thank you again. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. Thank you.
We really value your feedback, so we will kindly request you to either click on the link that's been shared on the chat, or just scan this QR code over here. It will lead you to a feedback form, and you guys can put in your feedback, your valuable feedback, what you want to see further, so that we can bring this to you.